How's it going, everybody? This is Rusty here at FCP Euro, and today I'm going to show you guys how to service your manual transmission in your Mk8 Golf R. For today's service, we're going to be going with the Liqui-Moly MTF 5300, which does meet the specification on our 2022 Mk8 Golf R. You may be curious as to why we have two different drain and fill plugs. You'll have to do a little bit of reconnaissance before getting into this DIY on your specific vehicle because some of them have two of the drain and fill plugs. Our specific vehicle is actually missing the fill plug, in which we are going to be filling the fluid through the manual transmission shift lockout. We have that now in the kit. So again, before you actually consider doing this service, make sure that you know which your vehicle takes. We'll get into that in a little bit further when we have the vehicle up in the air and we can show you where the drain plug will be, which is not very hard to tell even with the belly pan still on. Now, the service interval from the manufacturer is not specified. Honestly, 10 years, 100,000 miles, you may want to consider the service. I'm sure if you had this fluid sitting on your shelf for about 10 years, you'd probably consider replacing it, even if it was just sitting there. But imagine it sitting inside of the transmission, rowing through the gears, and it's also a great way to see how the health of the transmission is, straining that fluid and checking to see if there's any metal debris, or even looking at the drain plug and seeing what kind of debris is sitting on that. Typically, a lot of the older cars had some magnetic drain plugs. Unfortunately, on this one, it's aluminum. We're not going to really see any fragments or anything like that. So if your vehicle has a lot more mileage than ours, you may even want to consider like a coffee filter when you're straining it out to see how the vehicle has aged. And with that, let's talk about some symptoms. Again, this is a maintenance item. You shouldn't really have any symptoms going in here, although this may restore some shift feel. If you have any grinding or excessive issues with gear engagement, it's probably not going to be your fluid. You may actually have internal issues in the transmission and or the clutch. But rest assured, we're probably going to be doing a clutch DIY on this vehicle as well. So make sure you're subscribed for that one. But now that we've gone over everything on the table, let's talk about some tools we're going to need to take care of the job. As far as tools are concerned on today's DIY, everything on the table in front of us today will be the absolute maximum you'll need to take care of this job. But we will mention that if you have the fill plug, you may not need the components here. We have a 3-liter measuring device that we're going to be using to see how much fluid comes out, as our vehicle does not have that typical fill plug. We also have a flexible funnel from Hazit, and if you do have the fill plug, you may benefit from using the CTA 7073 fluid extraction. This is a great little tool to have, whether you're doing this DIY or another one in the future. We also have a torque wrench here, a small ratchet, a 10mm Allen, a 19mm socket, which would only be necessary if you do not have that typical fill plug that we are discussing. I have a pair of gear wrench clamp pliers, as well as a 90-degree pick. You could certainly get away with a small pocket screwdriver. And then we also have a flashlight and a T25 bit on my impact gun. So that pretty much takes care of all the tools on today's DIY. Let's go ahead and get started. So before you go ahead and purchase either of our kits, as we mentioned earlier, you need to do a little bit of reconnaissance and figure out if your vehicle does or does not, in this case, does not have a fill plug. You'll notice by looking through the vent on the belly pan without even taking anything off, you'll see a marking where it looks like there may have been a fill plug previously. Well, this transmission housing has been used for quite a few generations prior. Take a quick look underneath the car, make sure you do or do not have the fill plug. If you don't, it'll look like that. And if you do have a fill plug, you'll have something that looks similar to our drain plug here. So without further ado, we're gonna get this car back down on the ground and we'll go ahead and take the air box out to gain access to our fill plug. We'll be right back in a second. With the T25, I'm gonna start on the shroud in the front. These bolts do remain in the shroud. And then there's a clip right here. Pop that clip just like so and remove the front cowl. Next up, I'm just going to release this line from the trim here. And we're going to take out the T25s on the side. And then we will just kind of pop this out, tipping it down towards the engine. And technically, it does come out in two pieces. We can separate this slightly here. So I'll show you that once I get it out of the car. These two pieces come together and there's a clip right here. You're going to need to push this back slightly in order to release this trim piece while pulling up and pushing back in order to get that to pivot out. And then these two pieces come out and out of your way. Next up, we're going after the air box. I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp tool. These are nice from Gear Wrench. put it on there, and then we'll lock that in place. Get that out of our way. I'll let that sit right there. Right before you go to take the airbox out, we do need to release this airline, and if it is as tight on there as ours is, you may want to use a small pocket screwdriver or a 90-degree pick, but be very careful. You can rip this line and you will have some air leaks. So I'm actually going to leave that on there and disconnect it from the airbox. When you get it off the air intake, it does have a little bit easier of a fitting here, and you could certainly click that back into place, and we'll leave that vacuum line attached to the airbox. Once you get that released, pull up on the airbox, tipping it towards the front of the car, careful of the coolant line. You could certainly do some damage to the barb on the outlet of the radiator if you're not careful. And once that's out, one other thing to mention is there is a little damper or muffler, if you will, for the airbox. And that's basically just a drain. So make sure that that doesn't break on you. You could start to introduce some debris or anything if this does break or get damaged. So just be cognizant of that and the coolant line, and everything should be fine. So now that we have our airbox out of the way, we can see our non-traditional fill plug, or the transmission shifter lockout, as Volkswagen likes to call this. You could certainly go a little bit further, take the battery and battery tray out if you need a little bit more room, but we can get down there just fine with a 19 and a little bit of a flexible ratchet. One thing I do want to keep in mind is the starter is not far from here. So as these vehicles begin to age, there's a good chance that these starter covers on the positive cable could be missing, not reinstalled, or simply just fell apart and broke away. If that's the case, you may want to throw a rag over the starter so that you don't arc to the positive cable on the starter. Also, we have a positive cable here, so you could certainly go ahead and disengage the negative terminal if you're concerned about arcing off to any of the electronics. But I think we'll be all right here. I'm going to go ahead and release the 19. It is plastic, so be careful. You don't need too much force to get that loosened up. You are very close to the clutch line there, so be mindful of that. And there shouldn't be any fluid coming out of here. This is quite simply well above the fill area, so we are going to measure the fluid when this comes out. Temperature of the transmission is kind of cold. Should probably do this when the vehicle is warm. And there is some Loctite on this plastic thread. As you recall from the intro video, we definitely have to ratchet this all the way out. I was hoping I'd be able to get my hand down there and slowly get it out, and it's starting to have a little less resistance. And our fill plug is out. So let's get the car back up in the air. We'll start draining that transmission fluid and see how much comes out. Once you get the car up in the air with a 10mm Allen, we're going to crack this drain plug loose. And then I do have a receptacle here so I can measure how much comes out, as we will not be able to tell as we're filling it. Like most transmissions, you fill it until it comes out. This one, we're gonna have to be a little bit more methodical, if you will. So I'm gonna try to get this right to the last thread. And there we go. Oh. Got most of it. So we should have about 3 liters. All right, now that we've mostly drained our transmission, we've got a slight drip coming from it, measuring about 2,200 milliliters, and the suggested fill without disassembling the transmission. Keep in mind, there's definitely still some fluid in there. We're just doing a service. The suggested fill is about 2.15 liters. And if you completely disassemble it and have a completely dry transmission, you're at about 2.3 liters. Given that we've took out about 2.2 liters, we're gonna try to measure that exact amount and put that back into the vehicle. So once you're done with your measuring device, you can drain that out. And if you don't actually have the ability to measure it and you just have a container, you can certainly just put a mark on your container, refill your container with that same amount of fluid, and then transfer that into the transmission. So I'm gonna take this 2.2 and drain it out, and we will be putting that drain plug right back in. Now we're going to take our new drain plug. Keep in mind there is no crush washer on this. It is simply sealed based on the bevel on the drain plug. We're going to go ahead and put that back in there, and then we're going to torque that down to 45 Newton meters. And once that's done dripping and it's all dry, we are ready to lower the car back down and fill it back up and install the fill plug and airbox. So we'll catch you guys back at the top of the car in a second. So as we mentioned in the beginning of the video, There is no way to tell when the transmission is full once you've put fluid in it. So we're making sure that what we took out is how much is actually going back in. If you recall, we personally took out about 2,200 milliliters. The vehicle calls for somewhere between 2.15 milliliters and 2.3 with a fully disassembled transmission. The kit does come with 3 liters, so keep in mind you're not putting the entire 3 liter in there. And if you're fortunate, unlike us, and you have a fill plug, simply fill the transmission until it comes out of the fill plug. But we're not so lucky, so we're going to show you guys how to do it the hard way. So obviously, if you do have the transmission fill plug, you could certainly get away with one of these fluid extractors, which we've used in several other DIYs. Or you could even use this to fill it up. We're going to be using a funnel to pour from this and making it a little bit quicker, but you could certainly use this to measure the fluid coming in and out, as it does have a graduation on the actual bottle itself. And we're going to be putting this off to the side, grabbing this, going back over to the car. So we have our new manual transmission shift lock, but today we're referring to this as our manual transmission fill plug. We'll continue to let this funnel drain down into the transmission, and we'll get our new fill plug prepared with a torque wrench, and we're almost done. We're almost ready to get back on the road here. There are 2 versions of this. Previously, there was a metal version, and on this Mk8 specifically, there is a plastic version. The plastic version is torqued to 30 Newton meters. If for whatever reason you do have a metal version, that is torqued to 45. We'll go ahead and install this plug, and then we're going to be torquing this plug to 30 Newton meters. It's a 19 millimeter head, and with that Loctite, it's definitely going to give us some resistance, so we'll keep running that in. After finishing torquing that to 30 Newton meters, we can now proceed with reassembling the vehicle. Go ahead and tip the airbox underneath that coolant line. Get this fitted while it's still loose. It might make it a little easier. Line up your pegs for the airbox. Give it a good push down. Don't forget this air line. This will cause a check engine light if you do not hook that back up. I left the clamp on there for efficiency and ease of use. So put this back into place, releasing that lock. Make sure it's fitted properly and didn't buckle underneath or anything. Grab our 2 pieces of the air dam here. Tuck it under the driver's side first. Get this started here. And then if you recall, we do have a tab here as well as on this side. So underneath the coolant line, slide this here, line that up there. Click this into place. Make sure that all engages well. Push the coolant line back in there. We'll go ahead and put those 2 T25s back in. And then last but not least, the cover. It does have 2 tabs located on the front here that you're going to kind of hook in. Fold that back over, and then we'll reattach the T25s here. T25s on either side. And you have just completed the manual transmission service on your Mk8 Golf R. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to hit that like button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them down in the comments section below. Do not forget to subscribe, because we will have plenty more videos on this vehicle and many others like it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.